Yeah, Anthony Fantano, the Needle Drop 2025 year-end Let's Argue Extravaganza Celebration Mega. In celebration of 2025, what better way to argue with you guys and ask you what you think are the worst and most overrated albums of the year? Let's go ahead and do it. A contender for worst is definitely Some Sexy Songs for You. I remember that on my first listen, I actually fell asleep, and I don't think that's what Drake was going for. Yeah, I could see that happening. It is a very kind of slow, smooth, murky, and low energy kind of experience, with the exception of like a few tracks, one of them being Nokia, which in my opinion is a very fun, lighthearted banger. Party Next Door and Drake vocally have virtually no chemistry. They don't sound exciting together. They don't sound excited to do that album. It is musical Ambien. Jack Boys 2 is the most by the numbers low effort piece of garbage I've heard this year. The only thing good about it was the Waka Flocka ad-libs. I can't even argue with you. This was handily one of the most phoned in, forgettable, trash, basic, underwhelming, what the hell is even the point? Records and collections of songs I heard all throughout the year. Why did they even do this? No one's even talking about this album now. There's 100 reasons why. Life of a Showgirl. Taylor goes for a more upbeat sound in comparison to more recent releases and comes out with her most childish and outdated writing to date. I do appreciate that Life of a Showgirl is more direct, it's punchier, it's a little brighter, and a bit more fun to listen to, especially in the first quarter. I do like the first leg of the album, but Taylor very much forgot how to write good lyrics on this record, and that's a shame. So instead, she just kind of writes mostly cringe lyrics. I don't want to think anymore about Travis Kelce's cock. I'm going to be real. I don't want to think about that man's junk. Taylor could spare me that on the next album. I would be eternally grateful. Love is like Maroon 5. It's even awful by Maroon 5's latest standards. I will admit, I did not listen to the entire new Maroon 5 album. It just felt unnecessary, especially with how short it is. Addison Rae's debut album, are the songs catchy? Sure. But people praise it like it's some original new sound when she is very obviously pulling from Lana, FKA Twigs, and while having influences is not necessarily a bad thing, listening to her, I just feel like I could be listening to those two artists who do the sound much better. And those aren't even the only artists she's ripping off on the record. But with that being said, and I know there are a lot of people who are just very pro Addison Rae in my audience who are pissed off at that review, and I understand why. I mean, I sort of understand why. I get what they get out of the album. As disappointed as I was with the record, or not even disappointed because I didn't even think the singles in the lead up were all that great, so it's not like my hopes were high to begin with. There was still quite a bit of artistic progression to be had from her initial debut singles to what she did on this album. It's certainly more listenable than all of her initial singles, so like there's some growth there, there's something there, you know, and I have been admiring more how she has been carrying herself. If we're in for another like twofold, you know, expansion of growth of creativity on the next project, we could actually be looking at a very good, you know, sophomore album. But, you know, who knows? Maybe I'm hoping for too much here. I will say, like, for the next album, my hopes will be high. My hopes will actually be high. For this one, not so much. I wasn't crazy about it. I think everyone did their best and shouldn't be criticized for it. No, I think some people really were doing their best. They really weren't doing their best. When we look at some of these artists' catalogs and we see that they had come out with much better music in the past, even the recent past, there were definitely some disappointments and dips this year that were unexplainable or inexcusable. I'm not gonna agree with you on this one. I'm arguing. Tory Lanez put out an album this year that is 90 minutes of my life and all that. You listened to Tory Lanez for 90 minutes in 2025? Voluntarily? You weren't being tortured? You weren't doing this against your will? I didn't even know Tory came out with a record. Who gives a fuck? Who gives a flying fuck? Wasn't there recently more information that came out with like the case in terms of like, you know, his lawyer fighting on his behalf for his appeal? And they essentially were just kind of like, they couldn't even deny anymore that like, you know, he had actually actually fired at Megan, and that Megan, it was basically like on her to anticipate that something like that was going to happen because of the fact that she knew he was armed. What? So I mean, sorry, 90 minutes of Tory Lanez music in the 2020s is crazy. Nobody should be listening to that. The thing is, like, even these fucking dickheads who you see on Twitter like, free Tory, those motherfuckers aren't even listening to Tory Lanez for 90 minutes. They're just fucking assholes who just want to shit on Megan, and that's it. They don't actually like music or like Tory's music. They just want to be dickheads. It's got to be Rise Against Ricochet, from their complete radio silence on Gaza this year to the god-awful production to the Zach Sang interview talking about how the album was going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. I think I heard one teaser to that project, and I was just like, you know what? Not for me. This is not going to be a record for me. So, I mean, I guess I'm happy to hear further confirmation that I shouldn't have wasted my time there. Alex Warren, You'll Be Alright Kid, listening to the whole thing left me rotting. It's unfortunate. You know, I want to root for Mr. Warren. He seems like a nice guy, and, you know, he just wants to make his little silly pop folksy stomp clap songs. But Ordinary is like pretty much the polar opposite of everything that I look for in music. And while I know that I am going to have to probably give his record a spin before the year is through, I am not anticipating a positive experience. I'll say that. I wanted to throw any of the AI artists putting out dog shit albums, but I'm hesitant to do that because it's not actual music, and the impact AI has had on the music industry is the worst and most troubling, so on and so forth. No, I agree with this sentiment here. I don't even think AI songs should be allowed on my worst of lists for albums, for songs, singles. I will probably mention this at the top of those videos. AI making shitty music is a given. You know, it's like there's nothing surprising or exciting or, you know, even worth really deeply diving into there in terms of like how shitty the music is when we're actually like, you know, trying to rank what some of the worst songs of the year are. If somebody's going to get the worst song of the year, it really should be like an accolade. You know, it's like, wow, you fucking did that, man. You made the shittiest song of the year. Good for you, man. Amen. You're just the shittiest artist. The Wiggles' new album, Giddy Up. Wow, so disappointed that a once legendary band has fallen off. Hey, the Wiggles honestly were breathing life into country music on that record. I disagree. There were some bops on that LP, some cool country crossovers here and there as well. I feel like for, you know, a group with the legend status that the Wiggles have, it was a very genuine and very respectable exploration, a very respectable foray into the world of country that I feel like you need to maybe go back to and reevaluate your trash take here. Worst is the new NF EP. I gotta listen to that. Corny melodramatic lyricism, NF's past work without any other rapping talent on display. He's gotten worse at rapping? But the guy raps fast and aggressively. What, he's not doing that on this record? It's just the melodrama now? He doesn't rap so good? How is that? How is he doing that? That's like part of his core appeal. What do you mean? I'm gonna have to hear this for myself. Music by Playboi Carti. I found a total of 3 out of 20 of the songs on that album listenable, despite taking 5 years between this and a whole lot of red. It really feels like we waited almost 5 years and then made the album in 5 days just to push it out and make some money. There's no possible way on fucking God's green earth that he spent 5 whole non-stop years on that album. Maybe there's a song or two that like dates back several years that he's been kind of like sitting on for a minute and decided to like finally put out. But like there's no way he was like kind of like really like conceptualizing this record for 5 years nonstop. It does not sound like that at all. He just kind of farted out this collection of songs. But that's kind of what he did on Whole Lotta Red too. And that's a massively successful album for him. There's not really any kind of like, you know, reason for him to change up what he was going to do on music. You know what I mean? Now, look, on music, there are some hard hitting and fun hype tracks here and there, but it's still not a very consistent album. And it's a record where you're like pretty much left to pick out whatever kind of sticks out to you. As an overall album experience, it's not pleasurable at all. That Arcade Fire album this year was boring as shit, but I don't think anyone was really expecting much more out of them anymore. Yeah, unfortunately, like Arcade Fire albums have been on the downturn for a while, but the sort of the added kicker here was like just how forced and awkward like a lot of the romantic angles and lyricism on the record were, and just like how much of the material on the album were kind of like almost was trying to force this like comeback, bounce back. Oh, we're okay, everything's good, we're happy, we're feeling so great. It just came across as just very artificial and very weird and very off-putting. Probably their worst album. The Weeknd's new record, wow, didn't get the hype even a little. Most of the tracks sounded really similar to the point of it being boring. I disagree. I loved the album. I thought it was very good. I do think there is a case to be made for like, you know, the runtime being a bit fucking much. It is a lot of songs. It is a lot of tracks. It is a lot of time. You have songs like Timeless on there that feel almost pointless or like maybe just too repetitive, you know, could have used some switch ups. I still think it's a very good album from Abel, even if it is like, you know, not as digestible as, you know, his Blinding Lights era. Whew, the new Sevdaliza record. Yeah, I was not really feeling this at all. Very much echoing a lot of what you were saying here. I was confused completely by some of the weird Latin and reggaeton tracks that she was trying to put together. Like, you're not a Latin artist. And on top of it, like, that, I don't really feel like these songs and these beats play to your strengths that we heard on your last record. It just seemed like a very weird and awkward switch up stylistically, and a record that we shouldn't have waited this long for. It's not a great album. The Carter 6, yeah. The Carter 6 was so bad I almost like forgot it existed. I'm the Problem by Morgan Wallen. Ironically, the title is very fitting because a 37-song country pop album with very few good tracks that sold insane numbers is a big problem in music right now. Even worse, that actual good country artists like Tyler Childers get covered up by people like Morgan Wallen. No, I mean, that is a big-ass, long-ass, bullshit-ass album with loads of repetitive lyrics, mind-numbing songs that just drone on about the same handful of topics again and again and again. A very bloated record, very annoying record, and again, just like more proof that like artists are developing their albums these days not by virtue of what makes good album craft, but by virtue of like, how can I game the streaming algorithm? You basically win and you dominate in the charts by being a mainstream artist and flooding the zone with just a ton of crap. And Morgan Wallen has figured it out, and he is absolutely shameless about it. So there you go. You know, we shit on the new Taylor Swift album. We talk about how mediocre it is, so on and so forth. At least she wrote a goddamn trim-ass album and said, you know what? I'm going to write these songs, and if they do well, they do well. I don't need to shove a bunch of extra tracks down people's throats to see if they float. I mean, obviously, we have other versions of the album, and, you know, we had bloated projects with her past couple of records, but at least she tried to really trim it down this time and give us an album that feels like an album, is shaped like an album, not a compilation parading as an album and lying to us. And that's the thing though, there's too many fucking records that are essentially just compilations. The worst King Combs Yay EP, Never Stop What? Okay, you know what, I'm so glad that I've been, and I know this is like hard to believe because I just talked about him recently with like the apology video, but like musically speaking, output wise, I've been completely just like avoiding anything Kanye. Not to say I'm like avoiding his older tracks or records or, you know, classics and stuff like that. When I hear like new Kanye music, my brain just shuts off. I just go, what's that? What's music? I don't even know what music is. I've never even heard of music in my life. I can't even look up music because I've never heard of it. So what you're talking about here, I have no clue what the fuck this is. I don't know what it is. I don't want to know what it is. I'm going to forget what this is as soon as this is over. By the time you watch this, I will have completely forgotten about this tweet and this interaction and the mention of this. I don't even remember it. If you see me in person, you say, hey, what did you think of that King Combs Yay thing? Remember what you said about it? I'm going to be like, what? To keep myself sane, my brain purposefully deletes certain information that I pick up that I don't need to keep myself from sustaining any kind of psychic damage, and that is what is going to happen as soon as this is done and by the time you've seen this video. I don't listen to bad music because I'm just smart. Well, Mr. Smarty Pants, if you don't listen to bad music, you must not be listening to music at all because all music's pretty bad. Music sucks in general. So you just must be a film guy is all I'm gonna say. There you have it, everyone. Let's argue. Worst and most overrated albums of the year. Let's go. Thank you very much for watching. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. That is going to be it. Anthony Fantano, argue forever.